What's up guys, I'm Charles with Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Today I'm going to show you how to install a Tusk Stage 3 UTV Upgrade Kit on your Honda Pioneer 1000. The Tusk Stage 3 UTV Upgrade Kit is the premium option out of the three kits, and it comes with some accessories to give you more protection and a more comfortable ride while you're out on the trail. So what this kit comes with is the full glass windshield with the windshield wiper. You also have the 17-inch wing vents that goes along with the windshield. That way you can get some airflow into the cab. You've got the pivot folding mirrors with A-pillar mounts. You've got the profile aluminum roof and the hitch mounted spare tire carrier. Now all of these accessories are straightforward to install, so let me show you how. To start out, we need to prep our roof. So the first thing we need to do is disassemble the 8 roll cage clamps that came with the roof. So we're going to be using a 5mm Allen to do that. Now we can take the top half of the clamp. This half is going to have the flat section on it, and we're going to use that button head bolt with the washer. We're going to go through the top of the roof, through the slots, and thread those into this half of the clamp. Now that we have everything loosely threaded in, the orientation of the top half of the clamp needs to be so that that mounting bolt is more towards the inside of the roof, and the part that goes around the roll cage is going to be facing out. So we'll go ahead and adjust those, and you do want them to be able to move around still. So now I'm going to have a friend help me take this over to the machine and set it into place, and we'll adjust these clamps to the roll bar. Next, we're going to install the backside of the clamps using the bolts we previously removed. Now with this, you don't want to tighten them down all the way yet. You want to leave them just loose enough. You can still adjust this. Next, you want to make some adjustments to your roof. So you want to get this even from side to side and front to back. Once you have it where you want it, you want to start by tightening those button head bolts on the top of the roof with that 5mm Allen. After that, we can tighten all of the clamps down to the roll cage. Once you have all the clamps tightened down, that is going to be their final position, and we need to remove the top mounting bolts for the roof and remove the roof so we can install the foam tape. Now on top of the roll cage, the next step is to put some foam tape in between the roll cage clamps. We're going to do that all the way around the top of the roll cage, and that's going to help dampen any vibrations. And we'll just cut it to length. Now one thing I do want to point out is, since we are installing a front windshield on this, full glass windshield, we are going to be installing 2 of these P clamps, and we need to get those on before we install the foam tape across here. So we're just going to measure, about 9.5, 10 inches right in there. Leave a gap for that foam tape. And that way you still have some adjustability with these clamps. With the foam tape in place, we can go ahead and reinstall the roof and tighten down all of that mounting hardware on top. The next step is to install the A-pillar mounts. So we're going to remove the mounting bolts for the A-pillars starting on the driver's side, and we are going to reuse the nylock nuts. We will not be reusing these bolts. And to take these out, I'm using a 19mm socket on the back side and 17mm socket on the bolt itself. Now we can take the mount. We've got the spacer that's going behind it. The longer bolts that come in the mounting kit will go through the A-pillar, and then we have that lock nut on the back side. We'll do the same for the bottom bolt. Then we'll go ahead and tighten these down and do the same thing on the other side. Now we can install the mirrors. So this bolt, this is going to take a 13mm wrench. We're going to remove that completely, keep track of the star washer. You're going to install the bolt through the back side of the bracket, install that star washer, and thread the bolt into the mirror. Make your adjustments and tighten it down. To get the full glass windshield prepped, all we need to do is attach this flap seal to the bottom edge. So we have this face down just to make it easier. We're going to start on one side, press this on and work it all the way over. Now with the flap seal, if you find any spots that don't really feel like they seal tight to this, you can simply pinch this together, press it back down, and it should give you a tighter seal. Once you've worked this all the way to the other side, you can simply cut any excess off with some side cutters. Now for the windshield wiper, you have 3 different locations you can run this in. Typically the outer ones are going to be if you run more than one wiper, but since we're just running the one that came in the kit, we're going to go in the middle. So the first thing we need to do is pop this plastic plug out. There's little tabs on the sides. You can press those in with some pliers. Now for the windshield wiper mount, we're going to remove this smaller nut on the end. We'll remove the handle. And the mount itself, you've got the larger nut, a washer, and a grommet that you're going to remove from this. Next, we need to prep the wiper. So we have this plastic cover on the wiper. We're going to press in on the 2 tabs on the side. Pull the cover up, take the wiper arm, put it through there, hook it onto the wiper, and press the plastic cover down. We're going to set this aside and flip our windshield over. Now we can install the wiper knob through the back side. And we're going to come up through, and I like to line up the wiper arm with the wiper knob. So with this, we have a plastic cover. We're going to pop that up. And then there's some splines right on the end of this wiper arm that need to line up with the splines in the wiper knob or the handle assembly. Once you have those lined up, you can reinstall the smaller nut on the end and use a 10mm socket to tighten it down. Moving on to the wing vents, we need to prep the brackets for those. So on that, you're gonna have a left and a right pivot bracket. So this is the left pivot bracket, what that looks like. And then the right pivot bracket is essentially the mirror image. And all you need to do is take these pivot mounts. We're gonna have the side with that single hole. We're gonna take the M6x16 button head bolt, go through that. Then you've got your friction washer. Set that into place. And then you're gonna go through that pivot bracket. You've got the nylock nut on the back side. And with this, you're just gonna set a light tension on that friction washer so you can still move that pivot. We'll do the final adjustment later on. And we're just using a 10mm wrench and a 4mm T Allen to snug that down. And then we'll go ahead and do those same steps for the remaining 3 brackets. So that's the standard configuration for these brackets. There's a few different ways these can go together. So if you decide to run other accessories later on, you can look at your instructions for those other configurations. Now over at the machine, we're gonna install the windshield and the wing vents at the same time. So first we're gonna install the windshield clamps. So with these, there's a rubber strip in here. You may or may not need to use this. Typically you won't need it, but due to manufacturing tolerances, there's some cases you might need to put it on there for a tighter fit on your clamp. Now with these clamps, I'm just gonna remove that front bolt with the 5mm Allen. Then we'll remove the back side. Then I'm gonna mark where I wanna mount this up. So we're gonna go about 3/4 inch up from that weld. That's gonna be the bottom side of the lower clamp. And then we're gonna go about 11 5/8 inches up to the top. Your machine might be a little bit different. Again, there's manufacturing tolerances we're dealing with. Next, we're going to install the wing vent clamps. So to prep those, you might need to use a 13mm socket and 13mm wrench to remove this bolt and the nut. Make sure you don't lose the star washer or the spacer. Now to install this onto the roll cage, we're just going to spread the end over this. Now to make sure we don't scratch it up, I'm going to put a bag over the roll cage and push this on. And just slide it up. We'll do the same thing for the other clamp. Now for the wing vent brackets, we had the right and the left brackets. You're going to want one of each, and basically what we're going to do is these are going to mirror each other. So we've got one that the bracket is coming down, and this one the bracket is actually coming up. You know, and these are facing away from the machine. So we've got our bolt with the star washer. We'll go through there, make sure you set the spacer in place. And then install the nylock nut on the back side. And all of this hardware is going to be loose until we make our final adjustments with the windshield and everything. And even though we're leaving these loose, I did tighten them up enough just so we can make our adjustments and have them stay in place. Now with that, I'm gonna wear some rubber gloves and remove the film on these wing vents. And these gloves are just gonna help me not get my fingerprints all over them. Next, we're gonna install the small Allen head bolts into the 4 mounting locations. I'm going to start at the bottom, and again we're not going to tighten these down all the way. These are going to take a 4mm Allen. Now something else I want to mention is these clamps for the wing vents. We have these rolled forward so this flat part is almost facing the front, and that way it's not tucked behind this roll cage clamp, because if you have it back there, you're not going to have the right range of motion. Then we'll go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. With all the clamps in place, we're ready to install our windshield. It's easiest if you tuck this under the top first, right underneath that roof, and then work the bottom into place. And we're going to use the M8 bolts that we previously removed from these clamps to help hold it in place. Once you have all the hardware loosely installed, you want to make your adjustments both side to side and up and down for the optimal fitment. And then you can start by tightening the hardware that goes through the front of the roll cage clamps. Then tighten the backs, and don't forget about the 2 bolts in the top. Now, while we're talking about adjustments, I do want to talk about the adjustment on the windshield wiper. So right here, we can always move that mount back if you need to gain any clearance for the overhang on the roof. Next, we need to make adjustments to our wing vents. So you can see right here, we have the mounts too low. That's going to hit our mirror. So what we need to do is move both of these clamps at the same time. We're going to move this up. I'm going about as high as I can go, and I'm going to the front side of this clamp. So I clear that with that bracket right there. So I'm just going to check for full range of motion, which we have. So at this point, we just need to go through and tighten down the hardware. So, you know, again, these are 13 millimeter wrench, 13 millimeter socket. We're going to tighten those brackets up. And then that pivot, you want to make sure you have a little bit of resistance and that it's not going to move on its own. Now, as you tighten the mounts down, you need to pay attention to a couple things. So number one, this bracket right here, we pretty much need this at a 90-degree angle of that roll cage coming up, which it is. If it isn't, you can simply grab your wrench and move it up or down where you need it. And then you need to keep both of the mounts in line with each other. So you don't want one more forward and one back. They need to be parallel with each other. Once you have everything lined up, we're going to remove the bolts going into the wing vent one by one and apply some blue Loctite to them. And then once you're going in with those, you don't want to over tighten them. You just want to snug them down, and that way you don't crack or damage the wing vent. Then we'll go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Next, we're going to install our hitch-mounted spare tire carrier. Now, to do that, just below the bed, you're going to notice 4 bolts going in. They don't hold anything in right now, but we're going to use those to mount up our strut. So we're going to use a 14 millimeter socket to remove those. Now, to install the strut, this 90-degree bend at the bottom, that's going to be facing down. We'll just reinstall those bolts. And then once they're installed, we'll tighten them down. Next, we need to install the U-shaped insert into the spare tire carrier. So I have this tab on the end. I'm going to have that face towards the front of the spare tire carrier. And then this is going to be on the right side of the machine. where we're gonna line that up. So once you have those threads lined up with the hole, you can install the spare tire carrier into the hitch. Then we're gonna take our hitch pin. We've got our lock washer already installed on that. We'll slide that through and tighten it down. Once that's tightened down, you can install the safety pin. Next, we're going to use the two 10 by 25 millimeter bolts and the serrated nuts to attach the strut to the spare tire carrier. Now, if you're having trouble lining these holes up, you can loosen any of the previously tightened hardware, but it should be pretty close. And we're just going to use a 15 millimeter socket and wrench to tighten these down, and then go back through. If you did loosen any hardware, make sure you get that hardware tightened back down. The next step is to flip the tire mounting plate around. So we're going to use the 15 millimeter socket and again that 15 millimeter wrench to loosen these bolts, flip this thing around. Then we're going to make adjustments, and every wheel is going to be just a little bit different. You're going to want to adjust that wheel so it's about an inch away from your spare tire carrier, and then tighten this mounting hardware down. And that's how you install the Tusk Stage 3 UTV Upgrade Kit on your Honda Pioneer 1000. If you haven't picked one of these kits up yet, they're available on our website. And as you can see, it's pretty straightforward to install. Now, if you have any questions about that install process, leave those down in the comments below. And if you want to see more helpful content like this, subscribe to our channel. I'm Charles with Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Thanks for watching.